Hey everyone, welcome to Admit One with G Money. Today we have model, actress, social media personality, and founder of the web3 community, Siren Girls. At only 25, she's already been named Sports Illustrated Rookie of the Year, been a contestant on Dancing with the Stars, and owns her own activewear line, Ren Active, on top of building a follower base of over 16 million people on Instagram. She'll be talking about her jump into the Web3 space with the mission to bridge the gap between Web2 and Web3 by educating women on blockchain utility and mental health while bringing real value to in real life spaces. Please welcome Alexis Ren. Hi, Alexis. How are you?
Hey, I wish I could have had a cool introduction for you. And this is G Money.
I mean, that's good enough for me.
Man, everyone G Money with a really cool face.
CryptoPunk. Yeah,
The
I mean,
crypto punk.
I know we were talking about it before. We got to get you a CryptoPunk after
I know.
after the
That'd be
episode.
sick. I would
Um,
love that.
Yeah, but first off, I wanna thank you for coming on the show. I know, so I'm currently in London at the moment, and you're in LA at the moment.
Yeah. I was traveling in and out of Europe for a little bit, and I was like, I just want to be home. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna be in LA for a little bit. Is London your home right now,
No,
or
no, I'm usually based out of Puerto Rico, but I've been
fire?
in Europe for the last 2 months. So like this is kind of like the last week of my tour before I go home. Like I totally hear you with getting homesick. Where I'm like, I just want to be
I
home.
leave just so I can come back.
Exactly. Um, were,
um,
were you
I was
anywhere
gonna.
cool?
Can I ask you
Yeah.
about Puerto Rico because I'm really curious about? Are
No, I'm
you from
originally from
there?
New York. My parents are from Ecuador and Uruguay, but I moved to
Gotcha.
PR about 5 years ago.
Amazing. How do you like it? I've heard
Yeah, I
wonderful
mean
things
it's
about
it's
it.
great. It's definitely like I lived in New York City before I moved there, so it's definitely a change of pace, which takes some getting used to. But it's good. I'm
Yeah.
only 3.5 hours away from Manhattan, so whenever I want to go back, I can go back.
Fire. Yeah, it's that
Yeah,
island life
yeah.
vibe.
I mean,
I love
I
that. I'm doing all of this so I can just go back to an
exactly right. Wait,
island.
are you from? Did you grow up on an island or no?
I wish that would have been wonderful. I was born and raised in
Hmm.
Santa Monica, um, but I definitely, when I found island life and that way of living, I was just like, why didn't anyone tell me about this sooner? This is insane. So I make it my priority to get back there. It also really helps ground me with my intentions in
Oh,
society, as if I'm like completely not in society. When I'm on an island, which kind of feels like it sometimes, especially if the Wi-Fi goes
yeah,
out, you're just
yeah,
like,
that's
well,
all I can do.
that's all I got
No,
to
I
do.
totally hear you because I think one
But
of the
yeah,
things that I've really grown to love, like I'm a born and raised New Yorker, so I love like the city. But one of the things I've really grown to love living down there is like going for like walks on the beach and just like how like relaxing that is, right? And how you can get out of your head. There's really nothing like it. Um,
yeah. Well, you just realize there's like not much to do. When you're in a city, you're just like,
yeah,
there's so much I have
yeah,
to do. And then you get to an island and you're
right.
like, what was
Yeah,
what? And the days are so much longer. I think time is slower there. It's just, you get to
yeah.
appreciate it a
No,
little
it
bit
really
more.
allows you to like slow down and like stop and smell the roses for a little bit. But yeah, no, thank you for coming on. I guess for those in the audience that might not be aware of who you are, can you like give like a brief background of, like you're 25, you're so accomplished, like, how did you get started and how did you end up in like the position you're at right now?
God, there's so many factors. But I do want to say one of the biggest factors is that my mom homeschooled me. So I was never in the education system. And from a very young age, I was able to ask myself, what do you want to do? And then put my attention to it very early because I had all of this time to do that. My mom was very, uh, she focused on creativity and strengthening our talents and desires. And I really have that to thank for where I am at such a young age. And from that, I was able to question a lot of things at a very young age. And then from that, I was able to kind of like, I don't know, I look at life as a video game and it's like I got a few, um, red shells in Mario Kart, just like figuring it out. I always loved being in front of the camera. I was on the internet at a very young age because being homeschooled, you were at home a lot. I was able to connect with people at a very young age because I was homeschooled. Social, like Facebook, social media, Tumblr, like it was just my way of connecting. I think it was a lot of people's ways. I just kind of took it to the next level of like that being my space to socialize. And I started to fall in love with the idea of modeling, the Victoria's Secret girls, like that embodiment of like women empowerment. I was obsessed. I was like, this is, I don't know what is going on here, but I want to feel what they, you know, how they feel, what their vibe is. And so I manifested very quickly to be signed to a modeling agency. And then I started traveling very, very young. At 14, I lived in Tokyo for 6 months. And I grew up very quickly because of modeling. I think also being homeschooled, I wasn't necessarily around kids my age. I was just kind of around who I was around. And so I being around adults that just treated you like an adult, even though you were 14 years old, it really matures you in a beautiful way, right? Because you don't feel less than. So that was like a very interesting programming that I had at a very young age. I kind of was just very used to being around adults. And social media was up and coming through all of this process. And when Instagram came around, I was just working full time as a model. I was doing like the e-com runs. I don't know. You guys don't know much about e-com, but it's not fun. It's front side back, 200 pieces a day. You're in like a warehouse. But I was just stoked to be working at such a young age. And I was very grateful. And I just started sharing some of that on social media. And this was around the time when it was like, you know, the Wild West. Anything goes. This isn't a marketing platform. This is just social. Like it's just for the fun of it. And started to share my life more and more. I started traveling the world with a boyfriend at the time. And that's when things really started to blow up, because this was the first time where you could romanticize over other people's lives, you know, and we kind of took that leap to be like, let's travel, like let's go together. I also had the loss of my mother. She died of cancer when I was 17. So I didn't have anything tethering me to staying in LA. And so the traveling really launched me into my next phase of evolution in my own consciousness, but then also meeting people and connecting with people. And it just grew very, very quickly. So around, you know, by 18, it was millions of people had all of their eyes on us. And it was a surreal experience. I didn't know it was happening. No one did. You know, on social media, it's like no one knows what was happening. And I think there was something very pure about that. I still remember when, I think it was Forbes or like Elite Daily or something, called us influencers. And I didn't understand that word. I didn't know what it was. I didn't like the word. I never liked that word ever. I hate that word. Everyone's like, actually fuck that word. Because it's not an accurate representation of what is actually happening. Because we weren't influencing anything. We were living, and people were inspired by that. But I don't know. It gets milky with that word, but
I deal with it too. I'm
I'm
classified as an influencer as well, and I'm like, I don't really like that term at all. And I hope they come up with another.
I just hate all of it. I'm like, content creator, influencer, like it just all sucks. I'm like, this is just all what we've been doing in real life is just now on the computer, and we're trying to like put a word to it, and it's just like, no, I'm a model actress and I'm me. And it's just online now too. Like I don't, for a while I thought social media was a career, and now it's like, no, it's a tool. It's a bike. It gets me from here to there. That's great. I don't have to put my whole self-worth on it. But when I was that young and there was so many people following me at such a young age, it was like a lifeline. It was like, well, as long as I have this, I'm okay. And so that manifested in a lot of unhealthy habits of like needing the validation, the dopamine hits. And it was just, my mental health just, and I hadn't grieved my mom. So there was a lot of things that hit in order for me to get to a point where I was like, what am I actually doing for people? How can I actually give real value? I think real value is something that is hard to find, but is everywhere at the same time. And I was like, how can I give that, like, where in myself can I actually give real value that'll actually help these people that follow me and actually help these girls that follow me? Because this competitive fashion industry, I worked with this brand, you didn't get this brand, that you're not, you're here. It's a very, one, it's made up, and two, it's not sustainable if we all want to live in harmony, which I like and want to do. So when I kind of had enough with social media in the sense of the way I was going about it, I worked very, very hard. I almost kind of went backwards because my mom, she's very progressive, very spiritual, taught me a lot of things, but I kind of forgot all of that during this like social media whoop. So I went back to all of those teachings, and that really has a lot to do like with why I'm now heading into Web3 now, which it's just the progression. People are like, why are you going to Web3? I'm like, because that's where we're all going. Like, I don't know. Some people might get there because I'm like, but that's just the path. So, so that was like, okay, let's figure out what's going on here. And I had to do a lot of mental health work. I worked really hard on reprogramming myself. Really, like I look at myself like a computer. I was like, I just need to think new thoughts, figure out a new system, update the hard drive. And then from there, I was like, okay, now how do I want to take this knowledge and then give it back? So I didn't know, this was a couple years ago. I had no idea. I was still trying to navigate my own career. This was around the time of Dancing with the Stars, Sports Illustrated Dancing with the Stars. So I kind of just let life take me for a little bit. I was like, I'll go do this. I fell back in love with dancing, which was very divine for me as a person to kind of put me in as a whole of who I am. And I just kept asking myself that question. I was like, how can I give back? How can I get these girls that follow me or whoever that needs it off of social media, off of this kind of God complex social media structure into something more healthy and
Right.
that I can actually service them. And so that's kind of been like, that's like in the last 2 years, that's what's been manifesting with like Web3, with my online community, We Are Warriors, which I'm sure we'll get into, but it's been a long journey. I'm very lucky to have learned how to trust my intuition at a very young age, and I thank my mother for that. So, I always find it very interesting. People are like, what do you do? Who are you? What's your job titles? And I'm just like, I almost feel like, especially with Web3 now, everything's so nuanced and there isn't one career, and the education system doesn't guarantee jobs anymore. And it's really just, I think when we talk about, and I hate using the hype words, but when we talk about community, it's like, that's what the community purpose is for. Like, for instance, my sister went to be a dental hygienist, and we happened to have my godmother as a dentist, and she was like, you have a job as soon as you're done. And it's like, we wouldn't, like, that type of connection and relationship and community to like hold each other up. That's what's missing in Web 2. So I was like very curious going into Web 3, being like, is this what I think it is? Because I've been looking for real life
Right.
community my whole life.
And yeah, I mean, I want to get into that in a moment.
It's
I have a couple of questions that, I'm still thinking about. Is like, one, I think it's interesting, as somebody that is a big personality on Instagram, right? Like, you understand the toxicity of like, putting all your, let's say, self-worth on like that hit of dopamine or what people's reactions are, right? And like, I've been growing my following over the last year and a half, and like one of the things that I struggle with sometimes is like, not everybody's gonna like you. You know what I mean? Like, just the law of large numbers. At some point,
Yeah.
people will be like, fuck this guy. And like, for no other reason than that they just
Yeah.
don't like it, right? Like, they don't.
They just felt
Yeah.
like your time is good now. I find that very interesting with fame in general. It's like, and we do it like, and I'm saying it from like a self reflective perception. It's like I will have a moment where I'm like, your time's done. Now you can go down now. Like you're good. And I have to catch myself because I'm like, that's not how I want people to treat me. And so, once again, like, yes, there's a lot of mental health downsides to fame, but it also is, when you simplify it, right? We're really complicated. Humans make everything really complicated, but it is like everything is very simple, I think, a lot of the times, and our emotions kind of just are like, but what about this? What about this? And all these scenarios. And you're just like, no, it's just, this is actually what's happening right now. With fame, it's just a tool. I've been really using that word a lot. I'm like, it's just a tool and I always tell the girls I mentor, you don't know, it doesn't matter how many people hear your voice if you don't know what it stands for. And so fame, which has been a little dangerous for young girls because they get the fame before they get an understanding of who they are now, which is what happened to me. And so they have to almost like backtrack and be like, but what do I want to bring to the world? What do I want to give? Now I have millions and millions of people like expecting me to do shit. And anything I do is going to be under a like microscope of everyone's opinion. And it's super hard, but it's also it's one of the greatest opportunities because when you find that thing that is yours and it truly aligns with who you are and elevates you to your best self, having that audience to hold you up is a beautiful thing. So it is with anything, and I'm a huge fan of paradoxes. I live everything with the belief that it's true to an extent. You know, I use that word a lot, to an extent. So it's once again, it's perception. You just got to take it as this perception. But finding your voice outside of the fame is very hard. And I have a lot of love and empathy for girls that are going through that right now. And what I can't stress enough is that everyone's going through this at a certain point because everyone's on social media and everyone has a following and everyone is trying to showcase their work in some way on social media. So we're all going through this collectively. Like, that's why I laugh at the influencer thing, because I'm like, everyone is everyone is trying to influence what the fuck they're doing. And that's cool and that's amazing. What I don't like and what I'm excited about Web3 is Instagram could just be like, meh, bye.
Yeah, change the algorithm
like,
or whatever.
Wait, what?
Sorry.
Yeah, just like, meh, we're gonna focus on video. Fuck you, photographer. Like, it's just, that makes me so angry because I know so many people that have spent, 10 years on social media, like, and has really helped the cultural phenomenon of social media. And the tech company itself doesn't give a fuck. They're just like, I don't care. And that's so sad because they're neglecting the community aspect of all of this. So that's why Web3, one of the reasons why I'm like, okay.
Yeah. And so, I want to get into how you found Web3 in a second, but I'm super interested because you said, first off, I want to commend you on being like, I feel like you're wise beyond your years. Like, I'm always like, I get like a little bit of jealous, like when I meet somebody that's so young that is like has so much wisdom, right? Like, oh,
Me
man.
too.
Yeah.
When I meet like an 18-year-old,
oh man, I'm like,
yeah.
you figured it out. I'm like, it took me another 15 years, right? Like,
Fuck.
and like, so I'm like, I want to commend you on that. That's amazing. And like, I think part of that, what you alluded to, is kind of being homeschooled and not necessarily being brought up in the traditional education system. When you kind of started focusing on your spirituality again or your mental health, what was it that you like, what practices were you studying, or like how was it that you kind of got your emotional balance in check again?
I'm so happy you asked this question because it's like, that's the value, right? It's like, that's what people need to hear. There's a bunch of different practices I do. One of the ones that was life-changing, and sounds so silly, but it's the foundation of everything. It's our breath. So breath work to me was life-changing. I got certified. I did like a really intense 2 weeks where I did like an hour of breath work every day. And breath work, it's just basically you're over oxygenating your body with a certain type of breath work. And you do it for anywhere from like 5 minutes to an hour. And depending on how far you want to go, what happens is trauma and memories is stored like in our flesh, in our body, all over. And that's why like sometimes you're tighter in one area than the other, because you have an emotion that's been stuck in there. And it sounds really like woo and spiritual, but it's just like, that's actually just, it's just true. Like it's not, I'm not trying to, say, oh, look at the spirituality of all of it. No, it actually is where we store our emotions, right? Because when we don't, if I feel something and I don't feel it, or if I feel something and I push it down and then I forget about it, the emotion doesn't go away. It just goes somewhere else. And that's why sometimes, like, I always joke, because like last week I stubbed my toe and I started bawling uncontrollably, and I was like, I don't think this is about the stubbed toe. Like, I should probably look, we have our emotions, they tell us, what's going on, and so that we can process it. Therefore, it doesn't manifest into a physical illness. So when it came to breath work, over oxygenate your body, it's crazy. You get all of these weird sensations. Your hands start to like look like dinosaur claws. It's not fun. But all of these emotions come up, and it's insane.
Yeah, no, it's funny you say that, because like I feel like I've heard this somewhere where people say that like breath work is like the original drug, right? It's like if you want to have an out of body experience, you can just really do it with like,
every single one of my breathwork friends / teachers, they're all crazy addicts. They were like crazy addicts, and now they're breathwork coaches. So yeah, it's the truth. It's the craziest high. It is really a crazy.
I've done some
high.
breathwork myself, and like it's been like some of like the most like, it's been better than like almost any high I've ever had from like anything, right? It's like it's really, really crazy how just breathing affects that.
Yeah, I mean, breath is, it's breath and then body and then mind. So it's just like, if you go through the pillars, if you can control your breath, then you can control your body, then you can control your mind. So it really is the foundation of everything. And you think you can think your way out of this, right? You think you can think your way out of the pain. But sometimes stalling and trying not to feel the pain is more painful than just feeling the pain. So that was the one of the understandings I came to. So I was like, I guess I'm going to have to do the breath work really intensely and just like see what comes up. And it was an insane week of a lot of realizations, a lot of crying, a lot of screaming. Like I fully, not to get too like, but it was a lot. So that's an amazing tool. I recommend every single person to do it. I want us to start implementing it into schools as young as 5 years old. Like that should be foundation work, is learning your breath. Another thing, which is like, once again, it doesn't seem like a big deal, but journaling is huge, because what you're doing is you're starting to see all of the thoughts that is a product of you, like your identity. And I think it's 95% to even more, and I could be wrong, I'm not very good with statistics. 95% of your thoughts are actually patterns, and they're the same thoughts over and over again every single day. And I'm butchering that study, but you guys can look it up if you want to. So journaling helps you start to see the patterns and be like, oh, I don't know. And it's just an analyzation, right? And nothing's judgment. It's just like, okay, do I like that I think this a lot? Do I like that I feel this way a lot? Do I like, you start to get to choose, right? You get to, and then this is where the self-awareness comes from. I do this thing called subconscious writing, which is very, very helpful. An acting coach actually taught this to me, and it's been very beneficial. I do this with the girls in the community. It's where you write as fast as you can. So you get a paper and you just write. And you write everything that comes to your brain, like literally the stupidest things, like, I don't know why I'm writing this. I'm kind of hungry, kind of need to pee. Like, I don't know what I'm doing this for, blah, blah, blah. You just like, you go through your exact thoughts. And at some point, you're going to break through into the subconscious. And that's where all of this whatever, it needs to come up will come up, and you come to a lot of realizations. And you can also do it where you have an intention, right? Like, I want to I want to subconscious write about my childhood, and then you write about it as fast as you can. And what it does is it triggers all these memories that you forgot about. So it's really fascinating. Yoga is another thing that, once again, I think even though a lot of people do it, I still don't think a lot of people understand what it actually is. Like, it is actually medicine for the body. So you actually get prescribed poses, right? I think it's, if you go to India, they will prescribe you a pose. If your back hurts, they're going to be like, you can do this pose for 5 minutes a day. So it's not just like a dance. It actually hits different things. Like I love activating my pineal gland, which is like, you do a lot of forehead to knee positions, but it's not just, to be flexible or to do this. And it is a combination of breath as well. So that's actual physical medicine that has really changed my life. It saved my life a lot of times, to be honest with you. I was a ballerina for now 20 years. I still am. And if I wouldn't have had yoga, I'm fairly certain I would have had a serious injury by now, because yoga has taught me how to position my body correctly so that I don't injure it. So that is another one. Oh my God, there's a lot. There's a lot, but I will stop there. But those are, I think, like really good tools.
I think that's amazing. Like I said, I think your wisdom is amazing, and you should be proud of that. And being able to kind of, utilize your reach and kind of help other people, I think is super important. The question I have for you is, how did you find Web3, right? Like, and what attracted you to it? I think you kind of alluded to it before, but I'd love to hear like what your initial thoughts were and how you came to it.
Yeah, so I wrote in my notes, kind of back to like this, okay, how do I want to give value back? I wrote in my notes in 2017, like, I want to build a community where I can help girls. And I didn't know what that meant, but I feel like notes are kind of like this prophecy that you fulfill. Like, I don't know, everyone's notes is just like, I could be the next Messiah. I don't know. Or this is dumb. I don't know. I can't tell. And like, you're like you're manifesting things that you completely forgot about because it's in your notes. I'm pretty sure like my notes is like my secret manifestor. I'll just write something down and then a couple years later it'll manifest. But it started to manifest around COVID because people were stuck at home. I knew that getting physical exercise during this time is really important, especially for my young ladies. And so I opened We're Words, which is, it's cute. They kind of named it themselves. Like, I didn't, like, it was all them. But it just started off as a workout program. I had a live call with them every Friday. It was a 1 month program.
How many people?
And to help them
would
answer questions. Oh, I don't know, but it was a lot. Right. I mean, I would say like 500 or like 500 to 1,000. Like, not everyone came onto the live. That's how I'm remembering the live calls. But I think a lot of people signed up for the actual fitness program. But what I fell in love with was the live calls. I was like, this is amazing. Like, I get to talk to these girls. It doesn't feel forced. It doesn't feel like an Instagram live where it's just like, oh, let me answer your questions. It's like, no, we're having conversations just like this. And I was so in love with the format. I was like, how can we bridge this out? How can we make this like more based on this? And then that's when kind of the talk around NFT communities came in, and I was like, what does that mean? How can we, put two and two together? So for me, I came from an understanding of like, what does NFTs do for communities as opposed to like NFTs and then communities. So like, I learned about NFTs as I needed them, which was really a cool way to learn about them.
All right. I mean, that's awesome. Yeah. And so then I guess at what point were you like, all right, I'm like, it's time for me to just go full blown Web3 and like convert? Because I assume so. The name of your project is called Siren Girls. And that's building on the mission that you started with the Warriors.
Yeah. So We're Warriors, it's a younger demographic, and it's not so much for people in Web3 yet. And through We're Warriors, we actually built a tech platform called Stage, which is actually a gated NFT education platform, because we knew that this was like, me being homeschooled, I was like, I know that this is going to create the new wave of education for people, and I want to be on the frontier of that. So through We Are Warriors, we built, like, around We Are Warriors, we built a tech platform, which was really cool because it was like, we just created whatever the community needed. So it's a very, like, it has everything it needs. And then I was like, okay, this is amazing. I love that we can offer these kinds of services. Now I want to transition this into Web3, right? Because I want the people right now in Web3, I want them to understand the practices that I'm trying to implement. But we've like broadened it out even more. Like, We Are Warriors now has like financial education, investment education, tax education. Like, we basically, any gap that the school system neglected, I'm like, I'll fill. And so that's similar with Sirens. It was like, okay, mental health is the foundation for everything. It's a really like hype talk right now, because just like mental health. And it's just as simple as like, people who feel good do good. And so that's like just better for all of this. So how can we help that move quicker? So that was the idea around Sirens, was like, how can we bring, one, still have a physical place, because we do want to build like an actual like eco retreat place so that people can go, because I think it's very important that as we move into the metaverse, we still have places that are grounded. And I'm very interested in building something that is in harmony with nature, as opposed to just like sitting on top of it, kind of how our cities are. So creating a community in a physical location, while on top of it, giving people the tools for stay grounded through these times, because these really are going, I believe personally, that the people that are on Web3 right now are going to be running some really big things, right? We're still it's such like a beginning stage. Like, it's just, it's so early.
Yeah, that's a tagline, right?
I
like,
joke.
It's like, oh, we're still early, but like, it's really the truth. And like, to me, it's like, it's super. To me, it's super refreshing to meet somebody like me personally. Like, I have a gratitude journal that I write in every morning, and I usually write down 5 things that I'm grateful for. On my Twitter and my Instagram, I've implemented a practice of every Sunday morning, I write down 1 thing that I'm grateful for, and just ask people what they're grateful for too, right? Because to your point is like, when you feel good, you do good, right? And it's like, if you have positive vibes, and like, I mean, I remember I used to listen to this podcast, I forgot what it was called, but one of the things, and the interviewer would ask these high performers, like, what is the key to your success? And I'd say like something like 70 or 80% of them would reply like, just having the attitude of gratitude, right? Of like keeping a gratitude journal, just being, no matter how hard life gets, because, life is not smooth, just being grateful for the things that you do.
I didn't sign up to be here.
Yeah.
I would not have.
So it's like, to me, it's like really refreshing to, to hear somebody like yourself coming into the space and really focus on that. Because I think also, to your point, is like, when you spend so much time in front of the screen and you're trying to get those, you're getting those dopamine hits from likes and replies and whatever, like, it does tax on you emotionally at some point, and it's like, you have to have the tools.
Yeah. And like, we're all addicts. Like, we're all addicts. So I just tell people, I'm like, addicts are just habits, but like it's like, do you want to use your addict mentality to ruin yourself or help yourself? Because you'll get rewards, you'll feel good either way. You just have to get through that initial like push through. Like, that's why with physical wellness, it has to go hand in hand. Like, you can't talk about mental health unless you also talk about physical health as well. It is, I mean, we're just, once again, we're computers. Like, this is just the hard drive, and it's like, how do we keep the hard drive clean, keep it updated? Like, it's a lot of work. Like, being human is a lot of work, but feeling good is a lot of work. I tell people that, I'm like, it's not easy to feel good. Like, you have to work at it. But it's like, do you want to be in pain, just sitting in pain, or do you want to be in pain, changing to feel good? Like, the pain's there regardless. So you might as well, I always equate this to like stretching. It's like, yeah, my back pain sucks. Also, stretching sucks, but stretching also kind of feels good too. And like, when you can start to reprogram yourself to be like, no, that actually feels good. this actually feels good. Me working out feels good. That's when you start to have a healthier relationship to everything else around you, because your relationship with your body is the foundation, just like how it's,
Right.
and it's all one thing too, right? Like that's, people are like, you know, with mental health, I still feel like it's very much so here when people think about mental health. And I was like, and for me, it's been the opposite. I've been an athlete, a dancer. Like I get all of my dopamine hits from physical fitness. Like I actually suck at meditating. Like I have to do something physical. And I always tell people too, I'm like, meditation is just a state of mind. You don't need to sit there and be like, oh, go for a walk, go do, like, you don't have to be still. It's just flow state, right? So it's like, what gets you into flow state? Mental health doesn't have to be, it's not boring. It's not you trying to shut yourself up. That's not the goal. The goal is that one moment where you're like, oh, I don't want to be thinking about that. What else do I want to think about? That is meditation, that self-awareness, that mode of like, oh, I actually don't want to be thinking this. I'm going to go over here. That's what you're acquiring. It's not this like magical, like unicorn place you go to when you just,
I totally agree. And I guess a question I have, and I'm sure a lot of people in the audience, no, it's like, what's the reception been like from your community? And like, you know, what do you think? And I guess a question that that popped up while you were explaining that is like, how do you plan on onboarding people, right? Like, how do you plan on getting girls that are in We Are Warriors to be part of the Sirens community?
I mean, that's the cool thing with community. It's like, once you truly have connections to these, like I know all these girls by name, you know, and I've been working with them for 2 years. Like, it's like, they're my students, or they're and I'm also their student, you know? So we're all in this together. I don't know. That's kind of how I see it. And they feel the same way. So it's like, this isn't just, this is the difference between Web 2, right? Web 2, it's like, follow me, like, da, da, da. And then in Web 3, it's more so like, let's
figure it
join
out
together. Let's like join forces. Yeah. And so that, with that implemented, I'm not so afraid of, you know, suddenly everyone trying to tear me down, because they know me. And that's like one of my goals with Sirens, is like people to know me, and it's, I'm a friend to an extent, you know, to an extent, you know, boundaries and all that stuff. But this is, once again, like, I can't accurately answer that because like we haven't launched Sirens yet. And this is what's so cool. It's like, it's a self-discovery as well. But I don't consider anything that, I mean, I truly, this is how I feel. I don't consider anything that happens with Sirens a failure. It's just information, because it's just like, just keep going. We keep learning. Like, that's the whole point of it. And our intention is so pure. So it's just like, I follow that intention more so. And I'm like, I know people are going to jump onto this because, one, people want to help. Like, people really do. People want to teach. People want to give value. People want to be a part of something that's good. Like, it's good. It's just good business to do good now. I think that's like the transition. And so I have no doubt that like people are going to get involved, but also like, it's more for me too, like to enter this Web3 community, right? Because it is, I still think it's on a smaller scale. Like, everyone knows everyone, everyone's taught, like, it really is its own thing. So I want to enter into your guys' space and be like, here to help. Like, you know, like, let me know if there's anything I can do. This is like the things that we're teaching. These are the things we're giving. This is what we want to do. And then how can we help you? Like, that's what's so exciting for me, is like, I'm actually becoming a part of your guys' community. It's not just me like helping everyone else.
I guess I have a question about, let's say, how many NFTs will you be distributing?
How many
10,000. Okay. And I see 10,000. That they're soul bound, so that they will be non-transferable. What's the reason for that? I'm just super curious.
Sorry, go on. Soul bound? I mean, they're not soul bound, are they? We switched them over to soul bound. No, they're not. I think that was more so about.
Can you explain what you are creating?
No, I was like, wait, what?
Tokens? Are you calling them soul bound tokens? Okay.
Yes. Well, I think when we talk about soulbound tokens, it's more so on like the education aspect, because like with Stage, our tech platform, like it's going to be soulbound SPTs as SPT platform eventually, where it's like
if you
they're
complete the
non-transferable,
course,
right? It's like
you can't transfer it to somebody else.
when you it's done, you have it. I think this is like what our passports are going to be, our driver's license, our education, our diplomas, like that's, I think, the future of it. So that's what we're implementing as soon as possible with Stage specifically. But I'm really fascinated with SBTs.
All right, cool. No, I misunderstood that then. But no, that I think that's awesome, right? Because there's certain things that like you want to trade, right? It's like if I want to be a member of a community, I can buy into that, and then at some point maybe I outgrow the community, I no longer want to be part of it. There's still some residual value there, and I can then sell it, right? But to your point is like you can't be buying and selling identities and like diplomas of education and stuff like that, right? Because that doesn't necessarily make sense long term.
Exactly. And I was so stoked when I first read about SBTs. I was like, this is so cool. This is perfect. Because it didn't really, like, the NFTs, like, didn't really make sense for the education. I mean, because this is the thing, right? It's like Web3 is going to affect every single industry. And so it's really just kind of like, what industry are you in? And then how do you want to guess how NFTs, SBTs, like how do you want to guess that Web3 is going to affect it? And then try and get involved into that, because that is where it's, going. So I always tell people, I'm like, you don't have to, it's not necessarily like getting into Web3. It's basically being like, how does this benefit like the space that I'm in? And then how can I be the one to initiate that? Because that's like such a huge opportunity, So for me, it's education system. Like, I'm like, how can we push this trajectory forward? Because nothing makes me more sad to talk to friends who have been in college for 4 years and they don't use a goddamn thing that they were taught. They don't use anything, like literally anything. And the job that they're working right now was like through a friend and through this and through like a coincidence over here. And it's all very like you couldn't have guessed that. So it makes me angry also, because this is the one thing that we'll always be able to do is learn, but we're not always going to be young. And I think trading that is not fair. So, yeah. So with, Stage, even Sirens, it's like, we're just giving, the goal is to just give tools to be able to literally create your own life, like genuinely create your own life. So
I think one of the interesting things is, and I know this from my project that I launched, and I'm really curious as to why your reasonings are, and I'll share mine afterwards, but why did you decide to forego a roadmap?
These are personal goals that I've personally wanted to do for a long time. The idea of building a retreat center, a school, like of some capacity, bringing in thought leaders, teaching people, and then also it just made sense, I would say, not more so like we wanted this, like roadmaps kind of make me laugh sometimes, but like I genuinely, we were going to do it regardless. So it was like, let's just create that for people.
Yeah, where do you plan on building the retreat?
We already secured like a plot of land in Texas.
Amazing. And then you plan on, I guess, token holders will have some sort of utility of being able to attend the location once it's built. All right, cool. Yes. I think this is really cool. What I guess so here's an interesting choice. I'm super curious as to why you decided to build on Solana as opposed to maybe an Ethereum or EVM compatible chain.
Yeah, I kind of feel like ETH is kind of like the Windows and Solana is kind of like the Mac, Apple. Like, it just feels like that to me. Also, it's better for the environment. Who the fuck wants to pay for gas fees? So it just makes sense. I just, it just makes sense. I guess.
Okay. I think like to me is I think Solana, I think they've done a really good job at kind of lowering the cost of transactions, but I feel like there's still a ton of value accrual on Ethereum. So I personally am still like waiting till Solana or maybe some sort of other solution will kind of make itself known to the community, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. Once again, it's so early. So we're just, yeah, we'll see.
All right, cool. Yeah, I mean that's super interesting. Are you going to be working with your community to help like onboard them and like help them through the process of creating wallets and you know like education?
Yeah, we're gonna be giving, yeah, we're gonna be giving education, like
Mhm.
eh, NFT education basically as well,
Yeah,
because we're gonna need to offer that. I think that's like,
right.
I wish every community would offer that, because it's like you're coming on for the first time being like, how do I even do this? How do I even join a community? So yeah, we already have some education videos on our tech platform stage. So we're just gonna flesh it out for more of specifically to Sirens.
Cool.
But I
I
think
mean,
that's very
that's
crucial.
that's
Yes.
that's really cool. I mean, I get really
Mhm.
excited when I talk to people that are really excited about Web3 that have large Web2 or legacy audiences because I mean, you are so influential, and especially when you talk to people that are so young, right? Like, it's so funny when I first got into NFTs and I started explaining them to people, and I talk to anybody over the age of 30, and they'd be like, NFTs are stupid. I'm like, all right, cool. Like, why don't you talk to like your 12-year-old nephew and let's see what they think about NFTs, right? And like you explain the concept to them and they're like, oh yeah, this is awesome. Like, how do I do this? Right? Like it's like I love this, right? It's like and I always use the
Yeah.
Fortnite example where I started playing Fortnite at the beginning of quarantine and I started playing with my friends and one of them has a 12-year-old nephew and the first thing he asked me is like, what skins did you buy? And it's like this kid, he spends, he takes
Oh
all his
wow.
allowance and he spends it on digital goods, like whether it be Minecraft, Roblox, Fortnite, whatever it is, and he values that more than like, a pair of Jordans or whatever,
Hmm.
right? And it's like, maybe that changes over time, but he will be okay with owning a purely digital asset. So I think when the earlier we can onboard people into the Web3 ecosystem, I think it's overall better for humanity as a whole, where we're not necessarily beholden to these mega tech corps that
Yeah.
decide all of a sudden that they want to change the rules.
Yeah. Well, and also it's just like to put all of our material things in the metaverse as opposed to like creating them and hurting our planet. Like this, it's an amazing thing. Like I get excited about that because I'm just like, wow, we really are like, if we do this correctly, when we do this correctly, um, everything that is quote unquote bad for Earth will be, it won't, we won't be doing it so much on Earth anymore. Like we'll be, making clothes in the metaverse, and it'll all of those desires that we have, right? Because I'm conflicted all the time. I'm just like, I am such an advocate for the environment. I mean, who isn't? But at the same time, I love fashion and I love the fashion industry, and I'm just like, I feel tied all the time. But now with the new world that we're creating, it's like this isn't going to affect it, which is so exciting.
Mhm. Yeah, no, totally makes sense. Um, Last question. Well, I guess I have two more, but what do you think Web3 will be able to accomplish? And what goals do you think Web3 will accomplish that Web2 failed at?
Real communal events. I think with Web 2, it was like, come for this launch party, but it like no one, it's not very fun. Like those
Right.
outings are not very fun. But with the community aspect of things, I think the gatherings will be a lot more fun. It depends on how far you look at all of these
Right.
things, because it's like
No,
it's going to change everything.
yeah,
But compared to Web2, it's a healthier way to communicate and be a part of something. So just it will just be better for us as a society. I think will also bring us back to what we lost. And I really think that's personally my goal, is like coming back to that. Um, there's enough for everyone. I think this scarcity mentality that Web 2 has, where it's like, keep going, it's a black hole, keep posting more, keep selling more, da da da. It's so um, not sustainable.
right. No, I
And with
agree.
Web 3, yeah, with Web 3, you're a part of something greater that's also holding you up.
Right.
So
And also, I feel like
it's
holding you accountable to an extent, right? It's like you get that
oh yeah.
instant community feedback of people that don't necessarily want to see you fail. They want to see you succeed, but they'll like keep you in check, right? And That to
Yeah.
me, I think has been really a really interesting concept of being able to get that real time feedback. So you could be like, okay, I think this works. And then all of a sudden you start implementing. It's like, oh, wait, the community doesn't really love this. What if we tweak it like
Yeah.
this? And then, oh, that's the product that they want. That's the way they want to interact, right?
I have a question for you
Yeah.
real quick. How do you think the differentiation between Web 2 getting canceled on Web 2 versus getting canceled on Web 3? Like cancel culture. Like what do you think, how's that transitioning?
I think honestly, I think it's kind of the same so far.
Yeah, it feels the
Yeah,
same,
it
right?
feels like it might even be a little. I mean, I don't know. You've been under the spotlight for longer than I have, but like it's just like everybody has a really loud voice, right? When they're mad, and it's funny because it could just be like 10 people out of the millions that follow you, but they're the loudest, right? And like those are the ones that if you're anything like me, you pay attention to like all the, or at some point you paid attention to all the negative feedback, and like you could have like
Yeah.
hundreds of thousands of positive comments. You're like, but that one person hates me, and like you're like, why? I think we're still there.
Why?
I think we're still there. But I do think that like I've seen in cancel culture in Web3 where people that deserve it, right? Like there's no, obviously they deserve that cancellation, but I think there have been situations where people that don't deserve it, people end up sticking up for them. But I think you see that in Web2 anyway. So I haven't seen the
Yeah.
difference. Have you noticed a difference or no?
No, but it was so cancel culture was so prominent in the last 2 years, and I was like, this is beneficial and this is also very dangerous. And I'm curious how Web3 is. It's more of just like a anyone listening to this, like how is that going to affect it? Because we do need to hold people accountable. I just think sometimes the way we've done it has been very vicious to the point where it's like they're still here, like we still um especially if they don't deserve it. So I'm just curious how we're going to handle
I
that. It's really, I didn't have an answer, I was just
I
curious.
mean, I think the interesting thing that I'd be curious to see how it works long term, right? Is like when, and this is kind of related to cancel culture, but I think more about censorship, right? Whereas like
Hmm.
on a centralized platform, you kind of have a small body that will decide what is okay and what is not okay to say, right? To get shadow banned or account suspended or whatever, and you kind of don't know the rules because they kind of make it up as they go. But I think the interesting thing, I think in the future will be like, what if like let's say Twitter or Instagram was decentralized and there was like a voting council to say, okay, hate speech, this is hate speech, and you will have your account suspended for this, but like the community votes on it, right? So it's like, if the community is okay with it and the community stands for certain values, then it should be allowed across, and it shouldn't be like a gray area of like, oh well, this person doesn't like you, so you got canceled or you got censored, right? And I think that that's kind of the promise of Web3 is kind of getting rid of that ambiguity from a centralized
Hmm.
system and kind of giving it to the actual community where it's like, okay, well, it almost kind of like being judged in a court of your peers, right? Where it's like, okay, well, we understand the facts and this is the way the community votes. And I think if it's when it's clear and everybody can see it, then I think that to me is like the promise of Web3 is like you have the community deciding as opposed to like, you know, two or three people deciding what is acceptable and what's not.
Good answer.
um,
Good answer.
so before I let you go, what's your favorite NFT? And you can't say Michael.
uh, uh, I right now, okay bears, like I'm really into their vibe. Okay bears, yeah.
All right, all right,
Yeah.
cool. All right, sounds good. If for those people in the audience that want to find out more about you and what you're working on, what's the best place to check you out?
Well, we have a website for Siren Girls. It's called sirens.world. So that's where you can see all of the information that I might have left out. My Instagram is Alexis Ren, and you can also check out my the wellness community that I have that is launched right now, which is We Are Warriors. And that's just wearewarriors.co. We do have an application process now, just because with any community, once you have such an amazing set of people, we want to just continue to find people that align as well. And am I missing anything else? Twitter is Alexis Ren. And yeah, I think that's it.
Well, thank you for taking time to come on the show. I really appreciate it. This was actually a really, really fun combo about, I think, mental health, which is obviously something that I feel like is definitely not discussed enough in the space. So thank you for taking the time. Looking forward to your project and supporting you on crypto Twitter.
Thanks, G Money. Appreciate talking to you too.
All right. Thanks everyone for tuning in.